Whether philosophical, explosive, or just downright weird, the hallmark of a great sci-fi series finale is that they give us closure while opening up new possibilities. In science fiction, that balance is rare, and when it works, it feels like the perfect goodbye. But not all of them are universally loved, yet every single one of them understood what their story was really about. Welcome to Screen Rated. Today, we are counting down the top 10 great sci-fi series finales that gave us closure. Sci-fi finales are hard. Like, it's really hard. And when any science fiction show gets a chance to wrap up their series, they're not just ending a show. They're ending years of fan investment, theories, and arguments. Unfortunately, most series don't end well. They either rush it, over-explain it, or leave us staring at the screen scratching our heads. But every once in a while, a sci-fi show absolutely nails the ending. Not because everything is perfect or everyone is happy. These are finales that respect the journey, honor the characters, and understand that closure doesn't always mean answers. Sometimes it means starting over. Sometimes it means sacrifice, and sometimes it just means letting go. Here are 10 of the best sci-fi series finales that gave us closure. Number 10, Star Wars Rebels, Family Reunion and Farewell. It was never going to be easy for Rebels to squeeze itself between the Clone Wars and A New Hope without feeling like filler, but somehow it pulled it off. And the finale is the reason why. Instead of trying to outdo the original trilogy with bigger explosions or louder hero moments, it went smaller, stranger, and honestly smarter. Ezra Bridger's final move is peak Rebels energy. No lightsaber duel. No last-second force blast. Just a kid who has grown into a leader making a call that costs him everything. The whole Purgil hyperspace whale plan sounds ridiculous on paper, yet it feels completely earned in context. Ezra doesn't beat Thrawn by overpowering him. He beats him by outthinking him, then willingly disappears along with one of the Empire's greatest threats. That sacrifice lands because the show took its time earning it. What really makes this finale special is how it gives closure without sealing everything shut. Lothal is saved. The Ghost Crew survives. But Ezra is gone, and that absence hangs over the ending in a way that feels complete instead of frustrating. When Ahsoka arrived years later, it didn't feel like a spin-off chasing nostalgia. It felt like the natural continuation, almost a long epilogue that finally paid off the promise Rebels left behind. That is how you end a series and still leave the door open. Number 9, Sense8, Amor Vincit Omnia. Few finales exist purely because fans refuse to let a story die, and Sense8 might be the best example of that ever working out. After Netflix pulled the plug with very little warning, the backlash was loud, emotional, and relentless. Against the odds, it paid off. Amor Vincit Omnia was commissioned as a feature-length send-off, and it wastes zero time apologizing for what Sense8 always was. Big feelings, big ideas, and zero shame. The finale feels like a victory lap for the entire cluster. Every character gets their moment, whether it's emotional closure, romantic payoff, or just the satisfaction of finally standing together against the forces that tried to break them apart. The plot is admittedly messy, rushed in spots, and sometimes borderline chaotic, but that almost feels appropriate. Sense8 was never about airtight mechanics. It was about connection, identity, and the idea that love in all its forms is a weapon. Most importantly, the episode refuses to end in misery. This could have been a bleak goodbye. Instead, it doubles down on joy, intimacy, and chosen family, right down to a celebratory ending that fully embraces the show's unapologetic sensuality. It might not be perfect television, but it's pure Sense8. And honestly, it's exactly the finale fans earned by fighting for it. Number 8, 12 Monkeys, The Beginning. Time travel shows almost always crash under the weight of their own logic. Paradoxes stack up, rules get ignored, and finales usually handwave their way out of trouble. Somehow, 12 Monkeys did the impossible and stuck the landing. The finale feels like the writers pulling off a magic trick they had been setting up since episode 1, and then having the confidence to actually commit to it. At its core, the ending is built around sacrifice. James Cole makes the ultimate choice to erase himself from existence so the timeline can finally heal. It's tragic, heroic, and completely earned. This is not a last-minute twist for shock value. The entire series slowly pushes Cole toward this moment, making it feel inevitable rather than cruel. For a brief moment, the show lets that weight settle, and it hurts in exactly the right way. Then comes the risky part. In a move that should not work on paper, the finale introduces a rewritten timeline where a version of Cole survives and is reunited with Cassie. It's sentimental and hopeful. And against all odds, it feels honest. The show manages to honor the sacrifice while still rewarding the audience for sticking through 4 seasons of chaos. It's rare to see a sci-fi finale that feels both emotionally satisfying and logically complete. Number 7, Fringe, An Enemy of Fate. Fringe started out wearing its influences on its sleeve. Early on, it felt like a remix of the X-Files with Monster of the Week weirdness and mad science vibes. But somewhere along the way, it found its own identity. By the time the series reached its finale, this was no longer a show about strange cases. It was about consequences, love, and sacrifice across timelines. The ending leans hard into that idea. The Observer threat is finally undone not through brute force, but through choice. Walter Bishop, the man responsible for breaking reality in the first place, takes responsibility by removing himself from the timeline entirely. Walter and Michael traveling to the future through the wormhole erases the dystopian Observer universe. Humanity is saved, but at a deeply personal cost. What makes the finale hits how small and human the last moments feel. Seeing Peter Bishop, Olivia Dunham, and Etta enjoying a simple picnic grounds all the sci-fi madness in something real. And then there is the letter, the white tulip, Walter's silent goodbye. It's not flashy or explosive. It's gentle, bittersweet, and deeply earned. For a show built on fractured realities, Fringe ended by putting the pieces back together in the most emotionally satisfying way possible. Number 6, Babylon 5, Sleeping in Light. There are sci-fi finales that go out with explosions, and then there is Babylon 5. Sleeping in Light is one of the most reflective endings the genre has ever produced, precisely because it understands what the show was really about. This was never just a story of interstellar wars and ancient alien conflicts. It was about time, responsibility, acceptance, and what leadership costs once the fighting is over. Set 20 years after the main events of the series, the finale feels like flipping through the last pages of a long, personal history book. We see where everyone ended up, who stayed, who moved on, and who could not. John Sheridan, knowing his time is coming, chooses to say goodbye on his own terms. Not in battle or as a martyr, just a man surrounded by friends, closing the circle. The episode is slow by design, almost stubbornly so. It gives scenes room to breathe, letting the weight of shared history do the work. The final moments aboard the station as the lights go out are not sad in a conventional sense. It's peaceful and simply final. Sleeping in Light doesn't tease future adventures or leave doors open. It accepts that stories, like people, eventually end. That honesty is what makes it unforgettable, and why Babylon 5 still stands as one of sci-fi's most complete journeys from beginning to end. Number 5, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, What You Leave Behind. Deep Space Nine was always the black sheep of Star Trek, and that is exactly why its finale still hits so hard. While earlier series hit the reset button at the end of most episodes, DS9 committed to long-form storytelling years before prestige TV made it fashionable. What You Leave Behind had the impossible task of closing out the Dominion War while also saying goodbye to characters who had grown and changed in irreversible ways. The episode understands that endings are rarely clean. The war is won, but victory comes with scars. Benjamin Sisko's fate is deliberately ambiguous as he joins the Prophets, leaving behind his family and his station. It's not framed as triumph or tragedy, just consequence. That moral grayness feels perfectly in character for a show that constantly questions Starfleet ideals instead of blindly celebrating them. What really grounds the finale are the heartening moments. Watching Miles O'Brien and Julian Bashir say goodbye doesn't feel scripted or sentimental. It feels like two co-workers realizing their lives are about to diverge. Some characters leave. Some stay. Some futures remain uncertain. DS9 didn't chase a universally happy ending, and that honesty is its greatest strength. What You Leave Behind closes the book without pretending the story didn't matter, proving that Star Trek could grow up without losing its soul. Number 4, Star Trek, The Next Generation, All Good Things. All Good Things is one of those rare finales that feels intellectually clever. Instead of leaning on a nostalgia-heavy clip show, The Next Generation went big with a time-hopping story that forced Jean-Luc Picard to confront who he was, who he is, and who he might become. Past, present, and future collide in a way that mirrors the entire mission of the Enterprise, always moving forward while carrying the history and experience of the crew. The episode works because it treats the audience with respect. Nothing is overexplained. The shifting timelines are confusing at first, but they gradually lock into place, revealing that the puzzle itself is the point. Q's final test is not about saving humanity from some external threat. It's about expanding Picard's ability to think beyond linear time and narrow assumptions. In that sense, the finale becomes a philosophical mic drop for the entire series. And then there is the poker game. Picard finally sitting down with his senior staff feels small, but it carries years of buildup. It signals growth, connection, and belonging. Even though the movies continued the crew's adventures, this moment feels like the true ending of TNG. Not a goodbye, but an acknowledgement that the journey mattered and that these people changed each other forever. Number 3, Stargate SG-1, Unending. After 10 seasons of portal hopping, ancient gods, and escalating galactic threats, the show chose to end on something surprisingly mundane. Unending strips away the elaborate action the show is known for and locks the team in a time dilation bubble aboard the Odyssey, forcing them to live out decades together while the rest of the universe barely moves. It's a bold move, and honestly, kind of a gutsy one for a show known for action and banter. What makes the episode work is how much trust it puts in the characters. There are no villains to punch, no planets to save. Just time. Relationships evolve naturally. Daniel Jackson and Vala Maldoran finally cross into something resembling stability, even if it never feels fully secure. Samantha Carter carries the crushing responsibility of finding a solution, knowing every passing year is both a gift and a theft. And Teal'c, usually the most stoic of them all, slowly softens. Watching him smile feels like a payoff a decade in the making. The ending twist hurts in the best way. Teal'c volunteers to be the sole bearer of those lost decades so the others can return unchanged. Everything they built together is erased, except in one man's memory. For Teal'c, the warrior, it's not just a sacrifice, it's a deeply human ending and a perfect goodbye for SG-1. Number 2, Battlestar Galactica, Daybreak. There might never be another sci-fi finale that launched as many arguments and late-night Reddit threads as Battlestar Galactica. Daybreak swung for the fences, and whether it connected or not depended entirely on how much ambiguity you were willing to live with. This was never a neatly packaged kind of show, and the finale stayed brutally honest to that idea. After an intense battle rescuing Hera from the Cylons, Starbuck, realizing that the musical notes she's been obsessing over are actually coordinates. She punches them in and Galactica jumps to Earth, but not to the Earth you'd imagine. Instead, it's a prehistoric version, untouched and uncertain. After years of running, fighting, and compromising their humanity, the survivors are finally asked to do the hardest thing possible. To stop, let go of technology, vengeance, and the cycle that brought them to near extinction. The choice to abandon their fleet and start fresh feels radical, almost reckless, but also strangely hopeful. Then there is Kara Thrace. Her fate is intentionally unresolved, and that frustrates a lot of people. But it fits the show's shift toward mysticism and symbolism. Not every mystery gets solved. She was meant to be a catalyst and not a conclusion. Daybreak is unapologetically philosophical. It doesn't explain everything, and it doesn't try to please everyone. But watching these deeply scarred people choose survival over vengeance is powerful. Flawed or not, it was a daring way to close a space opera that was never afraid to challenge its audience. Number 1, Star Trek Voyager, Endgame. For a long time, Voyager felt like the underdog of the Star Trek family. Stranded on the far side of the galaxy, cut off from Federation politics and backup, it was easy to dismiss the show as smaller or safer than The Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. But over 7 seasons, Voyager slowly carved out its own identity. By the time Endgame arrived, the show knew exactly what it was, and the finale made the entire journey feel justified. The episode hinges on one simple but dangerous idea. Future Catherine Janeway refuses to accept the cost of getting her crew home the long way and travels back in time. The heart of the episode is the conflict between future and present-day Janeway. Present-day Janeway still believes in the long road home, in protecting the timeline and living with the consequences of their choices. Future Janeway, on the other hand, is haunted by loss and a life weighed down by regret. Watching those two Janeways clash is what gives Endgame its emotional punch. It is idealism colliding with grief. Future Janeway's sacrifice seals the deal. She knowingly walks into her own death to cripple the Borg and hand her crew a chance at home. It is the ultimate expression of who she is. A captain willing to break the rules, and herself, if it means her people live. And then there is the final note of hope. The birth of Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres's child just as Voyager reaches Earth is not subtle, and it doesn't need to be. After years of survival against impossible odds, it represents renewal. Despite the isolation and the moral compromises, the crew never stopped upholding the Federation's values when it would have been easier not to. They proved who they were along the way. They were Starfleet. Watching Voyager burst out of an exploding Borg sphere and finally arriving home is pure sci-fi catharsis. After years of isolation, sacrifice, and survival, they make it back together. The best sci-fi endings stick with us because they're never really just about the science. They're about people making choices, what it costs to move forward, and what they leave behind when they do. But all of them understood something important. An ending doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be honest.
Set a course. For home.
So, which sci-fi finale gave you closure? Which one did you love or hate? Drop it in the comments.